It says, how much did Frank Zappa influence your style of guitar playing and musical direction? And is there any examples that you could play for us to show the sort of thing you're talking about?
Oddly enough, Frank's guitar playing wasn't so much of an influence on me, but his music was, you know, because I've always was interested in hearing certain things in music. I like to hear great melody, you know, interesting lyrics, great guitar playing, and some kind of a compositional constitution. And Frank had all of these things in his music. And for me, he hit the mark in a lot of ways. His guitar playing, but I just work with different brain muscles on the guitar than Frank, you know. He actually would not play a lot of the complicated things that he would have other people play. He was more of a visceral type of a player. And I remember my audition, you're gonna love this. So Frank says to me, you know, you want to come down and audition for the band? And I said, okay. And he gave me a list of songs to learn, and obviously I got there. He didn't play any of the songs that he asked me to learn. And he was really tough. He was really very, he gave me a hard time. And there was a lot of people there. I remember Terry Bozzio was there and all this. And Frank comes up to me, and Frank will like pick up the guitar and say, okay, play this. And he'll play something very simple, like cryptic, you know, because he wasn't really, you know, a shredder or anything. He'll go like, you know, something, you know, and okay, but he'll say, play that, and play it like this. I'm like, okay, you know, and I play it. And meanwhile, I'm 20 years old, and I'm scared out of my brain, you know. Then he says, okay, now add this note, and he adds a note, and I say, okay, you know. And then he says, now play it in 7/8. So I sit there, okay. He's like, okay, now play it a reggae 7/8. I'm thinking, I said, okay, and I play it, and he goes, okay, now add this note. And he plays this note, and I look at the guitar, and it's impossible, I can't do it. Because it was impossible, it just couldn't be done, you know? And he looks at me and he says, well, I hear Linda Ronstadt is looking for a guitar player. That was my audition.
What else?
He was kidding. And he let me in the band, so.
Okay, this is the most common question ever, and it just says, what advice would you give to someone starting out playing the guitar?
Get a good lawyer.
The sort of things you should, you know, the best things to practice, and the way to go about it.
Oh, I know. Well, you know, I get asked that question quite often, and it's difficult because you got to find your own way, sort of. You know, the best advice I would give somebody is try to identify with what you're interested in. You know, try to find that thing. Everybody is good at something. You know, I believe that. I believe we're all creative and we all resonate at a particular thing. Sometimes it's numbers. You know, people. Sometimes it's being creative in a particular field. It could be anything, but one of the challenges is to try to find that thing that we're really happy doing and we feel that we can do good. And it doesn't just stop with music. I mean, I went to college at Berkeley, and I met a lot of wonderful people. And a lot of people, when you're young, you start out, you know you're interested in music and maybe the music business, but you're not quite sure how it's going to play out. So I met a lot of great people who started out going to music school wanting to be musicians. But you know, as their interests evolved, they discovered that they were really good at engineering or being a manager or, you know, editing. You know, there's so many fields. Some of them are less romantic than others, you know. Obviously playing a guitar in front of people or an instrument is really nice. But really, ultimately, it's finding what you're happy doing and then cultivating that. And if you do discover that you really do want to play the guitar, you see, I never discovered that I wanted to play the guitar, and I never made a choice. It was always just one thing, and that was it. You know, there was never really any point where I had to say, well, let me see, do I want to have a career in music, or do I want to do this? You know, if you find yourself at that kind of a crossroads, you really have to examine your intentions, because an artist has no choice. They can't make a choice. It's one thing or nothing, you know? And having said that, I think it's important that everybody plays an instrument of sorts, you know? It's like a birthright, you know? Whether you're banging on a drum or whatever, playing an instrument is liberation, you know? But as far as advice to a young player, if you know that you want to play the guitar, like I say, it's very good to have goals, you know, and those goals can be anything. Maybe you want to be you just want to be able to play rhythm guitar on the beach with your friends, you know. Maybe you want to be a shredder of the highest order, you know. I can tell you how to do that. Maybe you want to just be able to write music and use the guitar as a tool. Whatever it is, you got to visualize that goal. And once you got a very strong, clear picture of it, then figure out how to break it down into elements. And you slowly take each element and you accomplish it. And we do this unconsciously too, you know, but when I look back at my career, that's what I noticed I did, you know. I wanted to make a solo record, and I was very shy about it. I didn't care what the world thought, you know, but I was very interested in getting, you know, the right equipment and whatever, and I broke that down. Okay, the idea was make a solo record, you know. Then you got to break that down. It went from writing the music to buying some equipment, all the way through to, I actually started my own record company for it. This was back in, like, you know, 1980. And then they didn't have CDs back then, so every part of that goal had to be broken down into, okay, I have to make records. Who manufactures records? You know, so I gotta make a record company to get it in distribution. Who distributes records? And I'm very, very resourceful. You know, nothing stops me when I want to get to a goal. But I really think that, you know, that example, what I just explained, might be some constructive advice for somebody who, because the biggest question is, okay, I want to be a musician, I want to play an instrument, I want my music to be heard. How do I do that? Well, that's the goal. The way you do it may differ with technology that evolves. It may differ the country you live in. It may differ with the instrument you want to play. So I can't give you any real one piece of advice except pick a goal, figure out how to break it down.
When you're preparing for a tour, what sort of things do you practice to get your chops together?
The songs. Yeah. I make a set. Well, first, actually, it's interesting you're asking me that question right now, because I'm in the process of putting together a show right now. And it starts here. You know, I visualize a show, and just what I was saying, and I break it down. And the first thing I think is, okay, what do I want this show to have? I want it to be entertaining. I want it to be unique to the, you know, so that when people come, they're getting, you know, an experience that's enjoyable and stimulating, all these things. And, okay, so what am I going to do? And then I break down the show into portions, and I start thinking how I'm going to build certain things. And the worst thing for me is to go to a show and see one thing happen through the whole show. You know, so I break down the show in my mind. So it all starts here, and then I start to construct it. As far as guitar playing goes, yeah, I work on the songs, but then I take various elements of the show, sections, and I think, what can I do that I haven't done before that's sort of bizarre but interesting? You know, I visualize sort of like this performance technique lately that's sort of like it's like a body language.